Hey, what's up, guys? I have a Meditative Raditz deck list for you. Now, this is running the Panini 2 and all of the Fancy 1, 3, and 4. Now, this deck was just a pain in the butt to build, as in super fascinating to build, because there are so many different routes that you can go through, primarily based around a couple of the board cards you choose to run. So I'm going to kind of go into what I chose for this build. And as far as like the cards you might tutor turn one with the Raditz level one, it's going to be either probably Dirty Tactics for board decks, like other meditative decks, Villainous Visage against aggro decks, or you might go Diabolic Scheme against board, or sorry, like kind of anything else really, but especially like board decks. Um, I really like Diabolic Scheme against things like Aura Mastery because if you have the initiative, you can go knock out their provoking drill before they hit you and go get it. So that's kind of why I like it at three. I just really, really want to see this card bad. Yeah, I don't know. That's like why I really want to see it. The fact that I get to get it before my opponent can search it, with how all the kind of searching the decks do at this point in the game, just having the initiative on them. I keep saying initiative, but really the initiative on them to get cards out of their deck, I think is arguably better than searching technique at the moment. But that's me. Otherwise, there's a good suite of board cards I kind of go through. The three of cards that I chose are going to be Double Sunday, Diabolic Scheme, Declaration, Searching Technique, and Power Up. I chose these cards all at three, mostly because I chose Declaration at three because it's kind of like one of your few board hate cards that you have access to. Not to mention it's a ball shuffler. And because I chose to run Dragon Balls, and because Raditz has such built-in good control with Double Sunday, I opted to run three of Double Sunday as well. So between Declaration being able to shuffle, I can get additional three uses of the Dragon Ball a game on top of Double Sunday. If they cap it, I get to take it back. Was the reason why like I ended up running three of each of these cards, and I ended up running two Dragon Balls for that reason. Now, of course, power up at three is because aggro can be incredibly volatile, much like anger. So you have to kind of run the hard stops to beat those kind of decks. So I think almost all meditative decks are going to run three power up. Three searching tag, deck destruction, you guys say more. We run one black secret. This card is just so stupid. This card is a card that your opponent has to sequence around if you have it on the table. If, whether that's, a turn where, they might hold an attack and hand extra because if you top deck three setups and they can't knock them off, it's going to go to your turn. You're going to have a huge tempo swing with that. Especially if you're able to get hand knowledge or have like a time as a warrior's tool or have like a black power up on table and then have a block in hand so you can end combat and keep those on top. This card is just too good not to run. Putting three cards back in your deck. Incredible. As well as, let's see, I run two Dominion, which I don't think that card needs to be three in this deck. I'm almost never going to prioritize searching it. It's kind of more like if I ever want to do the fun little loop where I destroy one to go grab another, the one that I destroy is just going to go to the bottom of my life deck. So my opponent's most likely not going to be able to touch it if it's on the bottom of my life deck. So I can just let that one hang till next combat, kill the Dominion I just searched out, and just keep repeating the loop of searching Dominions out every time I do my mastery, and just keep putting them back in the deck. So two is plenty. Two black research, mostly because this card isn't always going to shuffle in. If you're against setup heavy decks or decks that are just going to sit on one setup or a couple setups out on you, you're not going to get this. You're not going to get the shuffle, which is the main goodness of this card. And I'm never going to be able to place this card in play with a destroy effect, almost never, because I don't have any self destroy effects in my deck. So for that reason, this card at a two. Some matchups, it's going to be really great. I'm going to be looping it all the time. Same thing with Double Sunday. They're just going to shuffle themselves in and kind of gradually build up my damage. But other games, they're not. It's just that's why it's at two. It's a great card, but not always going to be good. And I'm never going to prioritize searching this one, probably ever. Black Mist at two. Now, depending on how you want to build your deck, this card can either be a two or a three. I think there's a really good argument for three. My build, because it didn't want to dedicate a bunch of deck space to a bunch of different styled events, I chose to run two. Initially, I had about 8 to 10 styled events in my deck, a couple different events, and that was a big reason why I thought about running 3 Black Mist, but I opted to go to 2 and just run the 6 that I chose. So, but this card makes you really like this card as a 3 or running, deck built around synergizing Black Mist gives you a lot of toolbox. You get to get things like Scout Maneuver, Black Reflection, Black Strength Display, Black Invitation, all open up build paths for you. So kind of like when you get to this card, it's kind of one of those cards that like I think you should, when you get to it, it's really going to determine what route your deck's going. And I opted to kind of more prioritize a little bit of damage, more of the deck searching, more of the Dragon Ball control versus the Black Mist with, X event combo. So, and then of course I run balls 2 and 7 Namek because I run the ball control with Double Sunday and Declaration to recycle them. So, Anger's just degenerate. Everybody's leveling, and ball 7 is just a tempo swing, so there's almost no reason not to run it unless you're running like a ball 7 Earth to end combat. And then Smooth Stroll 1. So because I had a hard time picking my events, but these 2 events almost always make it at 3s in every one of my meditative decks I build, and those are Black Scout Maneuver and Black Distortion. Now, Black Distortion is one of the few board hate cards that Black gets, same with Decoration. I can really combo these cards quite a bit to where I'm shuffling everything back into my opponent's deck, and then I'm searching it out and banishing it. So that's kind of like a big part of why this card's really good. Because once board hits the table, you have a very, very hard time getting rid of it. And then, of course, Scout Maneuver. I'm going to be picking through my opponent's deck, or just pushing the game plan here. So having essentially 5 copies of each of these 2 cards, both these cards really further my game plan and really synergize well with my deck. And I say 5 copies because, if they hit the pile and I have a Black Mist, I can go search Black Mist to put Mist in my hand and play them. So just increasing my chances of seeing them and using them, which I think is just really good. If I was going to run more events, I would definitely have to cut some board cards, though, to get better use out of Mist. But that would be at least where I would make cuts. But current list, I have most of my main synergies and bases covered. And then, of course, I went 3 Stare Down, 3 Sphere. I would consider cutting maybe a Sphere and or Stare Down to 2s, just so I could run more style events and get better use out of Mist. But both these cards are very, very powerful, freestyle events that I think I almost feel like you have to run 3 of each of these cards. So, and then time. I don't run many attacks, and I don't run a ton of blocks. I run, I guess, 15 if you include offensive guard being a clutch block. And then, I run just the basic, high endurance energy blocks. Swipe gives me some pile hate. I opted to run brace for pile hate over like check, and then, of course, you catch to try to level. So I'm trying to get to 2 if I can. I don't bank on it. You might be able to slime a level. And decks that have a ton of anger hate, you're probably not going to get off 1, but you can definitely function, still on 1. To make room for more anger, it's tough. You got to sacrifice somewhere, and it's usually going to be your board or your events. I went 3 Wallbreaker because, anger is just degenerate. There's just not enough. There's just really not enough anger hate that I could pack in here where my deck would be in a spot where I didn't have to run Wallbreaker. I'd have to. Yeah, I don't know. There's just really not. It's just kind of a necessity at this point that like you have to run Wallbreaker. Even if you ran Trick Shot over this, the Wallbreaker is just the better option for my deck because I'm not necessarily trying to be aggro with my attacks, and I can get stage locked. And Trick Shots, I can take all the things out of my opponent's deck that counter Wallbreaker, so it makes it a really appealing choice that I run Wallbreaker. So, and then of course the offensive guard does a really good job of getting. If I use it as an attack, it does a really good job of getting all these board cards out of my hand and playable. So, the final card I want to talk about, of course, Black Teamwork. This card is like my finisher card, and this is another reason why running Black Mist with like say Black Invitation is really good because Black Teamwork is a potential 12 damage if I throw an A and I land it, but otherwise a 10 mil. It's a great, great card. You don't want to see it early because you're going to be building up that banish zone the whole game with all of your banish effects, your opponent using cards that banish, etc., etc. So 2 is good because I do want to see it I don't want to see it to like mid to late game. And if you see it, it's kind of one of those cards that you kind of pass and you rejuve it. And it's also really, really good late game ball seven target. But yeah, black teamwork is one of those cards that I wanted to run maybe capture in this card, maybe defensive burst. But then I would have to like I would feel obligated to run invitation, which would take more deck slots up. So again, there's a lot of play here, a lot of versatility. There are, by all means, you could change what setups you run a little bit. I would argue the core is mostly going to stay. I'd say most of the three-eds are going to stay there, but you could definitely play around with these numbers to try to make Black Mist work better, to fit more events in there, like Strength Display and Invitation. So, but this is the current build I have. I think it's a pretty good test. I don't see this being a permanent list, but it would definitely change based on how I feel my matchups would be. There's a lot covered broadly here in terms of board clear, ball shuffling, board control, deck scalping. It's really about how you want to balance it, and I think this deck is really, really awesome. I'd love to see other people build it, and maybe I'll get some games with it on Octagon. But anyways, I'm hella tired. Take it easy. Peace.